Welcome to Mostly Mets. I'm Jimmy Mack, and today what I'd like to talk to you guys about is some of the Japanese players that might be posted into Major League Baseball this off-season. Before we get into that, if you end up sticking around, liking this type of content, please subscribe, give me a like, comment what you think about these players that I'm going to talk about. But before I get into the players specifically, if you don't know, which most of you probably already know, the posting process for these Japanese players from the NPB. Basically, the team will post the player, whatever team they come from, whether it's the Yomiuri Giants or whatever. They post a player to the MLB. That player then has 45 days to work out a contract with any team. He's a free agent, basically. He could talk to any team he wants, get the best contract he can get. And then at the end of those 45 days, or whenever he makes a decision in that time frame, he can then sign with that team, and the team that signs him will be responsible for paying the release fee from his team in Japan. So not that complicated, but an extra step. You have to pay for the player and also give a portion, or not a portion, but a percentage of that contract to the team in Japan to release him. So you're kind of double paying here, but a lot of these players are really good, and if you want to be involved in this Japanese market, this is what you have to do. This is a different situation than we saw with Oroki Sasaki or even an Ohtani when he came over. They came over when they were very young, and they were considered basically international free agents, so there was a cap on the amount of money that they could get. You couldn't give them $100 million or $200 million or $300 million like Yamamoto got. You could only pay them what you could afford out of your international signing money, and that's just a whole different system altogether. Obviously, if either of the two guys that I'm talking about today are pursued by the Dodgers at all, they will probably go to the Dodgers. We've seen it over the last few years, last 5 or 6 years really. Any Japanese player that comes out, they basically want to play with Ohtani, and right now Ohtani's on the Dodgers. The Dodgers have that Japanese market cornered. Any Japanese player they want, they basically get at this point. And, they've put in the work to do it. They signed Ohtani to a big contract. The Japanese players obviously prefer playing on the West Coast, and the Dodgers have a lot of scouts and people in Japan building relationship with these players and these teams. So they have the upper hand, and basically, if you want to get one of these guys, you just have to hope the Dodgers don't want them. Also, it's important to note that if any of these players that I'm going to talk about today are signed, it's most likely replacing Pete Alonso. We don't know what's going to happen with him, this would be a replacement for him at this point. Also, the nice thing about this process is that it's a finite thing. We've all been frustrated over the last few years about how long these contract negotiations go on, and you're waiting for this guy to sign, and you don't know what to do to build your team because you're waiting on an answer from this guy. This is a 45-day process. If the player does not sign within those 45 days, he's returned back to his team in the NPB, and he can't be posted again until the next season. So it's a finite thing. You have 45 days, you know when it's going to end, and I think that's a nice thing in the offseason where things are going way, way too long. Now I'm going to get into the guys specifically that I've been talking about here. Now first I'm going to talk about the guy who kind of prompted this video. We got news this morning that Kazuma Okamoto will be posted, or most likely will be posted, by the Yomiuri Giants. This is after last week, or over the last few days, we heard that he wasn't going to be posted and he wouldn't be coming over this season. Now we get the news that he is. So this is a guy that is 30 years old, or he's 29, but he will be turn 30 during the 2026 season. He plays mostly first base now. He was a third baseman previously. He has a very good glove. He has 2 Gold Glove awards in Japan. I believe they were both at third base, but I'm not 100% sure. But he's basically transitioned to being a first baseman now. He's been very good there. He's also played some games in the outfield, so he's versatile. He could play multiple positions, but like we said, if they go after a guy like this, it's going to be replacement for Pete Alonso, so he's probably going to play first base, maybe some third. I don't see the Mets making a big swing unless they know Pete Alonso's walking away. If someone's giving him 6 years and the Mets say goodbye, then maybe this is a route they go. He's very consistent. He's been one of the best and most consistent power hitters in Japan for 11 years now. He's got a career .277 batting average, .355 on base, .882 OPS, 250 home runs around there, 717 RBIs. So he's been a very good, consistent player. Now, he doesn't have the pure power of the other guy that we're going to talk about. He's not the exciting option. He's not a guy who's going to come over here and hit 50 home runs. That's not him. He's consistent, and over the last but I think between 2018 and 2022, he averaged 34 home runs a year. And he's had some injuries lately. I know he had an elbow injury that kind of cut his season short this last season in Japan. But overall, very consistent, good defense, and a guy who has good control of the strike zone. He only strikes out about 17 or 18% of the time, which is very good, especially compared to the other guy we're going to talk to. He's got an 80.4% contact rate. So when he swings the bat, he hits the ball 80.4% of the time, which is very good. So he's got really good bat control, can basically foul off pitches, he makes good contact, and he's also only got an 8.8 swinging strike rate, so he doesn't swing and miss a ton. He swings at good pitches, and he doesn't swing and miss a ton. Now, to put that into context, Juan Soto, who's probably the best we've seen in terms of plate discipline and just overall swinging at good pitches and things like that, he has an 80.6% contact rate, which is just about the same as Okamoto, and a 7.1 swinging strike. So a little bit better there, about a 1.5% better swinging through pitches. But really, you could see that they're kind of comparable in that area. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this guy's going to be Juan Soto. That's not what I'm saying at all. But those metrics matter. He knows how to hit the ball. He knows how to put the bat on the ball. He hits for power. He doesn't swing and miss. Those are good characteristics, especially for a team that didn't have a ton of that this season. It was kind of home run or bust for the Mets all season long. It would be nice to get a guy who can put the bat on the ball. Now, there are issues with every Japanese player when they come over, and that is how are they going to handle the big-time fastball. The average fastball velocity in Japan is like 91 or 92 miles an hour, maybe even a little bit less, 90 miles an hour. And then in the major leagues, you're talking about 94.5 miles an hour on average fastball. So they're not used to hitting high speed. They're not used to seeing guys throw 100 miles an hour every day. And in the major leagues, you're going to see that. Everybody has a reliever. Everybody has a couple of guys on their team who throw 100 miles an hour. In Japan, those guys are a little bit fewer and far between. And what the scouts have said about Okamoto is that once the speed gets over about 94 miles an hour, his numbers fall off a cliff. Now, could that be something they correct? Could that be something that he works on and gets better at? Maybe, but that is a concern. Overall, I like the idea of Okamoto as a replacement for Pete as a good bat-on-ball guy, and I also think it's not going to cost you that much because of his age. Now, you talk about Seiya Suzuki. When he came over to the Cubs in 2022, he signed a 5-year, $85 million deal. That's about a $17 million AAV, and I could see Okamoto getting around the same AAV, maybe between $15 and $20 million a year, only because contracts always go up, but it's probably going to be less years because of his age. At the time, Suzuki was 27 or 28 years old. Okamoto will be 30 during 2026, so maybe it's a 3 or 4 year deal at $17.5 million a year. I don't hate that if it's a replacement for a guy like Pete, but I can also, in the back of my head, note that this guy is an unknown quantity. You don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him. You're hoping that maybe he turns out to be somewhat like Suzuki at that level of hitter, but I don't know that you do. Maybe you then have better options here. You know, there are guys who are free agents at first base who maybe could give you the same production for about the same amount of money or less years. Overall, it's a good. I think the Mets will be interested in Okamoto, depending on the price and depending on if the Dodgers want him. But overall, I think it's a good option for them. Now, the big name, obviously, that's been talked about for years now, coming from Japan, is Munataka Murakami. This guy is one of the best power hitters to ever come out of Japan. He had a year in 2022, as I think he was 22 or 23 at the time. He hit 56 home runs, broke their record. He's just a big-time power hitter, and everybody's been excited about him. I know Yankee fans have talked about him for years. Mets fans have talked about him. David Stearns flew to Japan to scout him, and I don't know if he met with him, but he flew personally to Japan, along with the general managers of the Dodgers and the Padres and a bunch of other teams, flew out there to see him specifically. And obviously, this would be an exciting guy, right? But you're talking about a lot of money for a guy in Murakami that doesn't necessarily, if you look at the advanced numbers, might not translate all that well. Now, he's only 25 years old. He'll be 26 in the 2026 season, so he's a young guy. Obviously, he could get better, and that raw power might be a lot for teams to kind of turn away from. You know, that might really get David Stearns or a lot of guys really excited. Maybe get him over here, work with our hitting coaches, and maybe you get some of that swing and miss out of his game, or the inability to hit the fastball out of his game. Maybe that's what they're all thinking. He has a raw power and could turn into a superstar. But he could also be a big-time bust. And I think that's the big thing I have with Murakami. He's going to get a lot of money. And he's going to get a lot of years. For his age, he might get a 7, 8, 9-year contract at $25, $30 million a year. You could be looking at $200 to $300 million contract for Murakami. And I don't know that if you look at his underlying numbers that that's such a great idea. It's very possible to me that he'll always hit for power. I think he will be a power hitter. He's going to be a 30-plus home run type of guy. But maybe he's a guy who hits 210 and hits 30 home runs. And I think that's kind of his floor. Now, his ceiling is a superstar. His ceiling is a 50 home run guy in the major leagues. But I think it's probably somewhere in the middle of that, and I don't know that he's worth that type of money, especially if you have a guy in Pete Alonso who you would give less money, who you would give less years, less money, or maybe the same amount of money but for less years. Yes, he's older, but he's a known quantity. You already have a slugger. Why would you then take a chance on a slugger who you think might become as good or better than Pete Alonso? That's my whole thing. I wouldn't hate it if they signed Murakami. Believe me, it would be exciting. He's the biggest prize free agent out there right now in terms of international guys and Japanese guys. It would definitely help you bring other Japanese players as well. So there's risks and rewards in it. But let me go over his numbers a little bit here. 273 overall in 8 seasons, 273 average, 394 on base, 951 OPS, 246 home runs, 647 RBIs, and that 1 year in 2022 he did hit 56 home runs, breaking their record. But if you look at the underlying numbers, 17% swinging strikes. He swings through strikes 17% of the time, and he has a 60% contact rate. His strikeout rate is almost 30%, so there's a lot of swing and miss, a lot of strikeouts. And like we talked about before, these guys aren't facing 97, 98 mile an hour pitchers every single day. They're just not. Japan has come a long way. That gap is closing between velocity, between the NPB and Major League Baseball, but it's still 2 or 3 or 4 mile an hour difference that you're seeing. And if you're not able to hit the fastball like you did in Japan, your numbers are going to drop, and that 30% strikeout rate might go up, and that 60% contact rate might go down. I think it would be harder. It's going to be harder for him to adjust to the major leagues. Now, he's always going to hit for power. Like I said, he's going to hit 30 home runs. It's like I say about Pete Alonso, the dude's just going to hit 30 home runs. Even if he has a terrible season, he'll hit 30-plus home runs because that's just what he does. He's going to make contact enough to hit 30 bombs. Murakami's going to be the same way. I'm kind of, honestly, on the fence about Murakami. I wouldn't be mad if they brought him in, but it would also depend on the money. And let's face it, he's probably going to the Dodgers. I think the Yankees will make a big push for him. It seems like Philadelphia might make a big push for him. One other thing about Murakami is he's not a good defender. And if David Stearns is talking about run prevention, pitching, and defense, well, why would you bring in Murakami, who really is not a good defender? You'd probably go more with Okamoto. I think that would be the more prudent choice if you're David Stearns looking for that mix of bat and defense. My whole thing is, if you're going to sign Murakami for $300 million, why wouldn't you just give Pete Alonso a contract for something that you know you're going to get? So that's my take on the 2 Japanese players that will be posted. I would be lying to you if I said I ever watched a live game that they played or know a ton about them. I'm just going off of scouting reports and what I see. Other people who have seen them live and have seen them play. Anyone who tells you they're an expert on these guys, unless they're paying for packages to watch Japanese baseball consistently, they probably are really giving you the same information that I am here. Overall, I think Okamoto's probably more of a realistic option. Murakami, I see going to the Dodgers, getting a ton of money. Unless David Stearns is enamored with his potential and age, I don't see it happening. And he's going to get a big contract. But that's really all I got. Please, if you're still here, give me a subscribe, give me a like, comment what you think. Would you like to see them sign one of these guys? Would you like to see one of these guys replace Pete Alonso? Would you rather see Josh Naylor play first base, a known quantity, and maybe we'll give you the same type of production as Okamoto. Let me know in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. And that's all I got. So until next time, let's go Mets.